Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So with Module 25 we've had definite few updates to companions, some of which making them pretty viable for increasing your party's effectiveness. Now you may have seen just a few months ago I made a video covering all of the best party buffing companions to increase your party's damage, and I threw in there as well also survivability ones. So I want to make an update to that. And right here we have the top 8, even though I have 10 of them here, of the companions I would recommend you run in a group in order to increase your party's effectiveness through survivability and through damage. There will be other companions that can provide healing support, but I'll cover those in an entirely separate video as I still have to test them all out, like the dedicated Squire, Helmet, Paladin, Ghost, etc. Now some updates we had was to, for example, the Dread Warrior. He actually got his powers fixed and changed a little bit. Now his Siphon Strike will increase everybody's power by 5,000. That was the same as before, but we will now actually increase everybody's power, not just the summoner. So if you're within 40 feet of the Dread Warrior, you gain that 5,000 power when he does the strike, and additionally you gain 5% crit severity. That is in total 10% stats if you can make use of all of them. So that's pretty significant, and you can see the buff right here. You gain it, Siphon Strike, and it lasts you 10 seconds. The tooltip's a little bit bugged in that the first 2 seconds it just pauses at 8 seconds and then starts the countdown. You will notice it will increase your stats, and it's not 100% uptime though. You can see back to 51% and back to 61% there. So it works. It works as it says it does. But without it having 100% uptime, it's not exactly the most reliable. If it was 100% uptime and could provide that boost to everybody, that would be pretty good. He would effectively be able to give everybody over a 10% damage boost. But because it's only 66% uptime, because when he goes and uses this, it only lasts 10 seconds. And then once it's gone, once that buff expires, he only activates it again after 5 seconds. So again, 10 over 15 is 66% uptime, which means you would only gain 66% of the 10%, which is still a 6% damage buff to everybody if they were to make use of that. But I don't think it's reliable at all because, again, without 100% uptime, people are not going to build around it. They're going to want 90% power and 90% crit severity regardless. And both those stats are very easy to get to 90% on most classes, especially wizards these days, which are very popular. Now, an additional change was to the Angel of Protection, which is very nice. She got her ability changed. Rather than only giving the summoner 5% defense, she will now give everybody 3% defense. Bit of a nerf to the summoner, but at least she can now provide the buff to everybody. And that area again is 50 feet with regards to all the other companions as well. And she does have some healing support. And I will test her out a bit later, but she can also shield you a bit as well. So she can be a very useful defensive companion, increasing everybody's survivability. So I've got to add her now to the list. So the list we end up with is this. And I have them ranked just here. I only have 12 of them ranked. I've not put any rank next to all of these. Now, I'll go over the colors in a second, but in top place, we have, of course, the Spine Devil. Spine Devil, still really good because of its ability to cause that vulnerability on the target due to its impaling fork. The vulnerability causes the target to take 10% more damage, and thus it's a 10% debuff to everybody. However, it's only got a 66% uptime, still makes it really good. Nobody has to build around it with regards to their stats like you would have to with the Dread Warrior, and so it's viable to use, and I would rate it at the top. And then there's Drizzt, 3% multiplicative damage buff. That's 3% no matter what. No matter what stats you have, it'll always be 3%. No matter what debuffs, what buffs you have on the boss, it'll always be 3% extra damage buff to everybody. Again, within 50 feet. And that's just Drizzt to Warden. Nice and reliable buff he gives us with Stab the Way. And then we have Portobello DaVinci. He's a new guy who just came. He's in the appointment vendor store. You can check him out and you can buy him, but I don't recommend it. You can buy him and he'll be very much like the tutor, giving us D&D in session. If you are in a team with 5 players, everybody gains 3.5% power and combat advantage. That's a total of 7% stats, whereas the tutor with class in session only gave 5%. So yes, you could say he's better than the tutor. He's very costly. He's going to cost you 5 events worth of achievement tokens to obtain. So that's why I wouldn't recommend him. And another reason is because people need to build their builds around it. They need to make sure that they miss 3.5% power and combat advantage. And then when somebody uses this, they gain that back to 90%. And if they do that, then they would gain the full damage boost from DaVinci and they can make use of it. However, what you're going to do is just readjust your stats so that you would just gain more accuracy. People are still borderline not capping accuracy. And so that's why you would be adjusting things. And that's why it's relevant to consider 80% accuracy. So when you're at 80% accuracy and gain the 7% buff from power and combat advantage here and just swap your stats around, you'd gain a total of 3.24% damage. Now, the reason I have not put it above the Drizzt is because it's not as reliable. People again have to build around it. They have to be at like 80% accuracy and then get to 87% accuracy by adjusting stats and using DaVinci. They would then gain 3.24%. And if they didn't perfectly make that switch with their stats and adjustments, they'd gain less than that. And so Drizzt just a bit more reliable in second spot. Then there is the tutor, which gives a total of 5%. Combat advantage a little bit harder to cap than power, and thus I would make the tutor actually higher than DaVinci. But because it's only 5%, again at like 80% accuracy, again with the same switching of stuff, with regards to his class in session giving 5%, that would be a 2.27% damage gain. Again, I adjusted it from the last time. You may see my previous video, and this would have been nearly 3%, 2.7%, I believe. And that was because I was just purely taking it as if you were at 85% combat advantage and getting to 90% with it. But here I've changed it. I've changed it so that now you would move those stats around and you'd effectively gain accuracy instead. At 80%, you would gain this much damage boost by increasing it by 5%. In 5th place, I have to put the Black Death Scorpion due to his ability to cause combat advantage on the target, them to grant combat advantage with his Too Many Legs ability. It's really reliable. He can maintain 100% uptime on that combat advantage, making the enemy grant combat advantage to all your allies. You really need this companion in like Tiamat whenever you're fighting her. So in the new trial, you can fight her in phase 3. You need it. When you're fighting like beholders and such in phase 4 and 6, it can also be helpful to have the Scorpion. And then you can see the rest of them here. The ones shaded in purple, like the Black Death Scorpion, can provide combat advantage. So I have the Pseudo Dragon, Blink Dog, and Panther here as well. Just their uptimes are not 100%, they're only 50%. And then you have them in blue here. We start with like the Stalwart Lion, and he can provide a defense buff along with actually a damage buff. He can provide radiant weapon damage to people, but he can also provide the ability when you stand next to him to intercept 10% of the damage you take. Pretty significant, but you have to be so close to him. So when you summon him and you stand next to him, you see you gain the buff just here, Orient Coalition. But as soon as you go away from him, the buff's gone. You can see you got to be so close to him. You got to be literally standing on top of him to gain that defense. Useful in a damage check when everybody huddles, and that's why he is on the list and he's like top of the defensive companions, but he can also provide a damage buff, about 1.5%. It will vary. But then you have like Bruner, pretty reliable. It's just 3% damage reduction. The Angel of Protection and Siege Master, basically identical, with providing 3% defense to everybody. The Siege Master actually got adjusted. He did not used to provide that. That's new with Module 25 changes. You can see he has now the ability of Siege Wall, providing that 3% defense to everybody. And basically you summon this guy, and when in combat, I believe he can always provide that 3% defense to everybody. There you go, you get your shield wall, and that will just remain in effect forever while you're in a fight. And so it's nice and reliable. It's the same like Angel of Protection, 3% defense. So there are options for survivability. You can see the rest of them down here. I've put these ones in green because they're more of a utility buff. 3% action points, 3% recharge speed, 5% movement, 3% movement. They're not the best, right? Usually 3% recharge speed, you will not notice it unless you're seriously long cooldowns. And yeah, the rest of them there, again, the ones I have in red, I just don't see as reliable. People are not going to build around the stats they provide, and thus they aren't too useful. Azariel, terrible chance, only 1%. Same with the Alpha Compy, terrible circumstance to gain that benefit. I adjusted the single target damage each of them can deal, and that's updated then with module 25 values. And yeah, your Angel of Protection not doing anything, but she will be able to heal. And again, you can look forward to a video on that where I test it. So hopefully this is somewhat insightful for you guys. Just wanted to go over this update and yeah, mention the Dread Warriors update, Angel of Protection and Siege Master. I do not see the Dread Warrior as being all too reliable because of the uptime not consistent, and you generally want those stats at 90% anyway. Oh, and yeah, I need to add the Blasphemous Assassin. She does have her Fairy Fire. Unfortunately, it currently does not work. Maybe it'll get fixed someday, but yeah, I'll add her to the list. There you go, but it currently does not work. It does have 100% uptime, and she does a ton of damage. But again, she's in red because it doesn't work. There should be a link in the video description where you can get this chart for yourself. Massive thank you again to all of these channel members for their continued support, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.